I don't know if any one person is capable of handling where it is taking us. It seems that it has something to do with each and every one of us in a special way. It's giving each of us a new life. It's taking the old one away, and your old life will be taken from you. It isn't a matter of time, it's a matter of the fact that the world is changing so rapidly, and we are all changing with it, and neither of us know what is happening to the other. There's a slow change taking place in some, and a faster change in some, but it's all one change. We are all coming into the body of light. We don't even have to do anything about it. We just have to keep our eyes open. But do you know who the body of light is? And I almost feel like there's something wrong that I have to say it. The body of light is the body of God. And that's who we're coming into individually and collectively. Now, you see the plan then. We started off as little frogs, less than that, amoeba, and the slow, gradual development of man. We passed a stage that is called mortal. Some of us are still surviving in it. The human race is surviving in mortality. We are somewhat above the average student of this, or the average person, because we're aware of where we're going and why. We are made in the image and likeness of God. And when we read it in John or in the other apostles, we read it as if it's some far and far away declaration. But now we realize that it's happening to us while we read it. And it's hard to completely understand that while we are reading what is happening to us, it's happened already a little further. It's happening so fast that you can't keep pace with it. And you are now in a body that will die, will pass away, and then another you will come forth. And they will name it something other than you, but it'll be you, and you'll be there to know it. And then there'll be another one coming forth, and that'll be you. And they'll say another name for that one. And this body coming forth each time is going to have all kinds of relationships, but the one body of God is permanent. And that's what is slowly forming in our consciousness. Right as we sit here, in 1 hour, we'll have that much more of God. And you don't get God on a ration basis so that it's an inch of God or 2 inches of God. You're coming into the infinity of God. It's overpowering, but it's true. Someday, you are promised to live in a body that doesn't age. A body that cannot be sick. This is as sure as rain. And it seems like we're waiting in time. That's fictitious too. There is no time in the kingdom of God. So we're on the throes of something gigantic. You could almost say you sit and just wait for it. But it's like riding on mountaintops. And while it's happening, we have a way of learning what is happening so that we can cooperate with it. We can ride the bumps, we can ride the waves, we can ride everything that happens to us when we know that we're always going to be alive and well. And that's not an advertisement. That's right in the book. It's counted on. It's guaranteed. It's from God. And little John seemed to have a way about knowing things. He never went to study. He was close to Jesus. Everything he knows he knew from Jesus. He was so young, but John had something. It was John who said many of the things that you are coming into. John was who said, God is a God of light. It's hard to believe that we were taught God is light. But now we're being taught that we are becoming God. That in the invisible we already are God. And God was a name used to describe what they couldn't describe, what we wouldn't understand, what we might not even believe. But you are coming into the position of knowing that not only am I God, but my neighbor is God. And we are one. You see, then, it's silly for us to go to war against another country, or to rob the neighbor, or to do anything that would hurt ourselves, because the neighbor we rob is ourself. And the nation we go to war against is ourself. And the slaves who were slaves at one time was ourself. All colors are one color. All religions are one religion, God. There's no Catholic, there's no Jew, there's no Protestant. God. How can I say I have a religion about myself? The one religion is the religion of all, but it won't show forth until all are one. That's what's happening. Very slowly, day by day, you see something around you and you feel, now that's a little different. Everything you see is like the fin of a whale. You see it sticking above the water. But then you come down and there's that giant body. Everything you see is just a little fin of a whale, but it's connected. It's all connected. And there's only one. And you're talking about one all the time, except when you're talking about that which does not exist. And that's how we spend most of our day. Doing the things that aren't so, things that we feel got to be done, things that we have to get to. We have our little program all laid out. We're busy. But while we're busy, God is shaping us into His image and likeness. And when you can rest in that and feel the nature of it, feel the warmth of its truth, you'll find that many of the cares that you have during the day about Sister Mary over there and Brother John over here and this job isn't right and I wish I could get promoted and a million different things, you'll find they're all needless. That when you sit still and know quietly, I am the Son of God. I am. I'm not going to be. And when I do this and that and the other thing, I am saying I'm not. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. All these things I have to do because the world says so. And God says, rest in the knowledge that you are the Son of God. Believe it. God is your Father, and you are becoming your Father. We have such a wonderful, wonderful knowledge as soon as we let ourselves realize that God wants me to be like Him. No matter what I look like, whatever age I am, whatever my condition, whether it's poverty or wealth, I am the image and likeness of God in the invisible. And now, the invisible is taking shape. That's why it's stepped up in what we call speed. In the human self now, it appears to be very quick. Yesterday, he was just a quiet little man. Today, there's something about him that I recognize. He's different. And so it is with you. You're coming into your God qualities, and you're being compelled to let go of the qualities which are not God, which are the illusion. And you begin to take a vision of the whole picture. You have been, from the beginning, honed carefully by circumstances throughout the whole world. Each one of us has been honed into a certain size and shape and a certain way of thinking until we're ready to go into the acknowledgement that you see before you, the making of the Son of God. This was planned for us. This is our heritage. And we have 3 more levels of understanding before we attain it. The 5th level, the soul level, is what you're being prepared for now. And you'll find your mind isn't going to be very active. You won't be very active physically. You'll have a new body. And it will shock you to find that that's the body you've been talking about, the body of light. You have a new body coming into your awareness. That's what's been merging into your consciousness. I have a new body of light, which I've always had, but I'm slowly becoming aware of it. Oh, just say 500 years, you won't recognize the earth. It's only a phase. The life that we live is just a phase. Just as 300 years ago, all these fellows shouting about not knowing what God was, but shouting when you're saying this and you're saying that. When the fellow invented the Galileo, it was a miracle to them that he could go up and shine this thing around and look at it and tell you what was happening in the world. They couldn't understand that. They thought he was a pretender. They just outlawed him on the strength of the fact that he was different. They wanted things where they could see them on the earth. Everything just the way they wanted it to be, the way the book said. But the book was written by people like themselves. And the book was good, but they had to not make man live according to their theories, their interpretations. They were given by the inside story of Jesus a different interpretation. We didn't say do this and don't do that. It told you to see with the mind of Christ. And they couldn't see with the mind of Christ. Christ wasn't telling them that everything on this earth is all there is. He was telling them that there was a new earth and a new heaven. And we are going to experience that new earth and that new heaven. We are experiencing it now. I'm sure deep inside, probably all of you feel a tug. Something happening I can't explain. What is it? You're being born. You're being born into the Spirit. And when they say there's a material consciousness and there's a spiritual consciousness, it isn't a question of both being there. One is and one is not. The material consciousness that we have lived in, I don't know, maybe 5,000 years, 10,000 years, more than that. It's going by the wayside. It's being displaced. Someday you won't even know that there was a material consciousness. That's how the world is changing. Your spiritual consciousness was just a child, an infant, being born. But is your knowledge of spirit. And the mind was the knowledge of form. It's hard to say that I'll be around and I'll know that there are no forms on the earth. I'll see forms. But in the wisdom of the sages, you will look through the forms and realize these forms are merely the fourth world appearing and now disappearing. We're going through that. We're going to learn what is and what is not. Everyone is perfect, everyone is well, and no one, as they come into the knowledge of spirit, will ever be one day older. All of the varieties in age that we see are in the material consciousness. In the spiritual consciousness, there is no increase in age. Everyone is as old as another one. There are no years. There isn't even a false death. And that's the age we live in. To me, it's the most exciting thing I know. And I wouldn't feel that way if I didn't feel the truth of it. That we are given the opportunity to witness our own birth. From nothing to everything. It's happening every second. Maybe if you sit still for a while, we can feel it. You can feel the growth of being. It's coming out of the blue, out of the darkness, out of the depth of nowhere. But it's always been alive. There's always one self alive. And that self we are. There is so much in store for us when we can see the other fellow is just the same as we. Everything you want in life is nothing compared to what you have. Everything you hope for, child's play. You have it all. And so has the other fellow, though he doesn't know it. And knowing these things about ourselves and each other, we can come to each other with a different viewpoint. I don't have to have my cynicism on my right shoulder staring at you. I don't have to be careful about what you say and what I say. I know what God says beneath it all. And whether you hear it or not, whether you repeat it or not, whether you show it or not, you're coming into what is true. And I can look at you and I can know that there stands the Son of God. And one day, when the Son of God is in his full glory, I will say, God is in our midst. The world of time won't exist. And we have to start to know that. We have to live without time. Oh, I know it'll take time to get rid of time, but there is a moment when you can see that time is just a defensive tool, a momentary thing we use to designate one time from another so that we can see the difference. But when we are time itself, there's no need to designate differences in time. There won't be any night. Night is just the darkness of human experience. There's no night. It's all day. So become accustomed to these rapid changes that are taking place. They won't be labeled, and you won't see them, someone saying, this is the situation now, but you can feel them, you can notate them, and in a sense you can lend yourself to their being so when you realize it's part of you. That part of you is just floating by all the time, and you are not what you seem to be when you're in this little cage. You're all of it. You won't have to see the world through a glass darkly anymore. Now, I can't say that this is happening in the next 500 years. In fact, it's not happening in such a way that anyone can describe the time it takes. But as we get out of time, we won't be thinking along the terms of in 20 years or 200 or 500. We'll just see that all things that happened in time are just like yesterday's old rags. We're just using to scrub the floor with. We're living in a new age. It seems to be moving rapidly. And we have to get accustomed to who we are in this new age. It's very important to know that everything that's happening, I am. Everything that's happening in reality, I am. There are many things happening that will fade out of the picture. And I can learn what is and what isn't. If it's material, it has nothing to do with me. It's just a momentary thing. Everything material will disappear out of my life. I am spirit. My neighbor is spirit. The things in the world are spirit. There is no matter in the world. You can start thinking that way accurately because you'll discover you're ahead of what is happening. That's what's happening. Let's try to get a feel of the spiritual universe. It's all around us. It's happening now. In the South Pole and North Pole, everywhere you go, it's one universe. And it's all under one law. But it's all invisible. Don't mistake the visible world with the universe. The invisible universe is your universe. And you'll find that its laws are forever. They don't change. You cannot improve perfection. To get the feel of our neighbors, our friends, the people around us. We want to get the feel of them as living spirit. When you feel them as living spirit, you will drop all your concern. Every child, when you know that child has spirit, what can you do to improve it? ever. But it's not a game. It's not something I'm saying he's spirit so I won't worry. No. He is spirit so I won't worry. In fact, there'll be no need to think of worry. That's a foreign belief that only exists in the world that is not. We want to learn how to turn off the world. A few minutes a day without the world, and you'll see how easy it is. The only thing that keeps the world alive in you is your personality. When you have eliminated the you, there's no world, because you keep the world alive. And you are unreal. Because the you that is there is not that you. The you that is there doesn't have rheumatism. The you that is there can sleep at night and not sleep at night. Makes no difference to him. The you that is there hasn't a problem, a care. And there is that you, and you're going to find it, and you're going to be surprised. Why didn't I know about my existence? You're going to find that when you're sleeping at night, you aren't. There's a you in the world that's moving all around the world, while the physical you is asleep. It's very much alive and aware. When you arrive anywhere, you'll be surprised that people knew you were coming. The you that you are has a way of going ahead of the form. Soon you'll get used to that, being in the form, but not identifying with the form. I think some of you can do it now. It's as if you were saying, you see me, but don't be fooled, you know, I'm not this person. I'm the Spirit of God. And I live everywhere. All over the universe. But then again, to some people, I'm not telling anything new because they live everywhere, all over the universe. We intermingle, and then we finally get the idea we are one self. That's why. I want to convey that there is a gentle peace that passes all understanding. A gentle peace that comes upon you as you suddenly realize, what am I struggling to attain for when I am? If you do that, it's because you come into the self that is not in the body. The self that is not in the body is the one that is aware that there are no physical structures to fall upon me. There are no physical laws to obey. There's no aging process. There's no dying process. There's just living in God. Without obstruction. You find when you feel this way, your relationship with animals is different. Something about them that has this keener sense built in to make up for the lack of the fact that they don't do the other things that you do. And they sense it. They sense your awareness. They sense your being. As if a dog would come up and be sniffing your spirit instead of you. Don't be surprised when you find there's a keener animal beside you. It'll be because you have attained a higher degree. Do you think now we can climb the ladder? We'll get in at the 4th level as just ordinary mortals, or at least pretending we're mortals so we can get in at the 4th level. Let's see if we can't stretch out a little, sail right through the barriers that were there in our mortal space. Can you feel the invisible help? Can you feel that we're moving in a direction that is growing up to who we are? If we're held back by some ills of the world, we can take them in a different way. We can realize that they don't belong to us. We're just letting them tag along. They're not part of our world in the 7th level, in the 6th level, in the 5th level. And soon it will be those 3 levels and no others. This new consciousness will not be more space only. It'll be the absence of space. It won't be more time, it'll be the absence of it. So it won't be obstructed by space or by time. But your feelings, the things you feel, will deepen into something far beyond what you're feeling. You have feelings of love. It varies depending on who you love. You find that you have an uncontrollable feeling of love. It's in the atmosphere. It's love everywhere. It isn't this kind of love either. It's a much more heartwarming love. It's a love that anticipates nothing opposite to love. It's able to go with it. It's a love that everyone inherits. It's wherever you go. It's in the air. You breathe it. You see, you don't have to read anybody's mood. Their name is love, whoever they are. We're talking about the Spirit. Wherever you go, you're welcome. Whoever comes into your presence is welcome, automatically. No thought involved. What's come over John? What's come over Mary? There's something about them. You can feel it. What are they so happy about? It seems to be in there something that I don't see. I didn't know they got any good news lately. They are just the expression of love. It shows itself in everyone who accepts it. This may not be where you are at this moment. At this moment you may have to face yourself as you are, as you appear to be. But when something happens to you that you can't control, lifting you from what you appear to be to something greater, you will realize that's the infinite force of spirit, and it's coming through you. And it's coming to all of us. It has to lift us to the next rung. We have to leave behind all mortality. That deep cough in you that bothers you so much, you'll have to give it up. You won't even be able to hold it. And that operation you had planned, you find out it doesn't exist. We're coming through areas we didn't know existed. We're finding ourselves on the other side of the material world. The inside. We're turning the world upside down, inside out. And it's a strange, beautiful, new heaven and new earth. There isn't a thing on it that you'll recognize. You will just recognize what the seeds were. And you were looking at a world that was not in existence. One day you'll be looking for it and wonder where it is, and then you'll forget about it. You won't even know it existed. And I think that's just around the corner. For some of us it'll be a little longer. For some of us, it is around the corner. We have come to a fair understanding of God's perfection. As Shakespeare put it, we have shuffled off the mortal coil. And he was many, many years ahead of us when he said, "What fools these mortals be." We didn't realize how accurate he was. Where would he be at this time? Was he possibly in the world at the time he was writing his great plays? It would seem so. And yet he couldn't have been much longer in the world. So all of the things he was writing about, the problems that existed, the way dukes and duchesses and kings were vying against each other, all of the mortal competition, our friend Shakespeare knows none of that now. Can you begin to feel the futility of that kind of life? Vying against those who are and those who are not. Those who favor what we favor and those who do not. You see, we have no competition anymore. Those who favor and don't favor. That's not what you mingle with as spirit. That's what you mingle with as matter. This was the fellow you liked. You'd like to get him in the club. This was the fellow you'd like to keep out of the club. That's all gone. You don't think that way. You can't even help not thinking that way. You're off the mortal level. Do you get an idea of the picture when you are lifted and can't act as you did before? Just cannot. You don't have the tools to work with. You have a different set. Now when you go forth into this world, you're going to meet a different temperament than the temperament you meet in the infinite way classes. I think Spirit is depending on you to regard this world kindly, to see this world as an attempt of people to be something that they'd like to be, and to accept something that they know they have to accept. And in your realized consciousness, knowing that the Spirit of God is all they are, you can help. You can take their hand like Sir Walter Raleigh did across the puddles. You can lead them with love in your heart, no matter what they are, who they are. And let them wonder why you did it. That's the nature of helping our neighbor so that our neighbor can then help his neighbor. you noticed are various states of ego. They may not be aware of it, but each one is a composite of several egos. And when you reach the level of no ego, it's hard to imagine how you are going to be, because you like to say, this is mine, and that's mine, and how dare you touch mine. The world you're coming into doesn't have anything that is mine. It's all yours, but it's all Jenny's, and it's all this one's, and it's all that one's. We own the spiritual universe because we are the spiritual universe. You may have walked by it, not even thought about it, and then suddenly we're brought up with a start, and that's what I'm feeling, and you look at it and the words are coming back to you, and they're saying what's in your heart, and you didn't look at John to find that out. This then is the message which we have heard of him. When John says we, he means the spiritual John. And declare unto you that God is light. Do you realize how deep that is? How totally deep it is. God is light. But you don't realize he's talking about everybody alive. Everybody on the earth is the Son of God, and if God is light, everybody on earth is the Son of light. And that isn't something I can read as if I were just looking at a little book and forgetting it. How can I forget that I have just been told that I am the Son of light? And how will that change my life? It's got to, or else I'm not a student of God. So I'm saying to you and you and you are the Son of light. And we have John telling us that 2,000 years ago. And have we accepted it? Or have we just mumbled the words, or heard the minister mumble them? I say accept it now. God is light. And in him is no darkness. Now, you've been hearing that this will go and that will go, all your problems will go. Why will they go? Because in God is no darkness. And it's not an untruth to say that in you is no darkness. Where are all these problems you thought you had? You've been denying the fathership of God. It simply is not true that you have one problem if God is your father. You have imagined problems, yes. Now you can see it with God's eyes that is the way it is. So here we are free, with all these things that we have taken on as our problems. Sister Mary is having a child down there, and this one is having a problem up here. We all have all over the world we have people who we love, and they have their problems, so we have their problems. And they love us so they have the problems that we have. You know it's not true. It's just a conflict of century after century having taken on the ills of all of our neighbors and of ourselves, and we have a pattern of I have this wrong and I have that wrong, and I don't have anything wrong. If I did, God would have it. And if I don't, it's because God doesn't. You've got to drop all your problems. You will anyway. You can do it in 5 years or 10 or 25, or you can drop them now and realize they're all illusion. Every single one. Some illusions hurt an awful lot. Some illusions just will not go away. But they're illusion nonetheless. Your Father is the God of light. And you have no other Father. I realize it's difficult to say this doesn't hurt me and that doesn't hurt me. They just told me that I had to take my liver out next week, and now you're telling me my Father is a Father of light. Well, your Father was a Father of light when they told you you had to take the liver out and before. He's been your Father since the day you appeared on this earth. And before that. And before that. And before that. He's been your Father eternally. And you may as well face it. He'll be your Father eternally in the future. Even though there is no future. All of God is your Father. If you still have problems, work them out. You have an advantage. You know you don't have it. You don't have the problem. In Him is no darkness. If we say that we have fellowship with Him, and walk in the darkness, we lie. And do not the truth. But if we walk in the light, as He is in us, the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ, His Son, cleanses us from all sin. I'm talking to your heart. The blood of Jesus Christ, His Son, cleanses us from all sin. Sin is a pain in my foot. Sin isn't only what I think of someone else. It's how I feel about myself. But I cannot walk with God, or I don't know how to walk with God, if I think I have it. I better learn how to walk with God. Let's start doing it now. How do we walk with God? I'm so tired of reading about it in a book. How do I do it in myself? How do you? We have to forget the little me. There is none. I cannot speak of me and God in the same breath. The Son of God is I. If there's a me in your vocabulary, you'll find one day when it's obsolete, there will be an I standing where me stood. If me was eliminated with all of the obstacles that me has, with all of the horrible things that have happened to me, with all of the horrible things that will happen to me, if me wasn't there, I would stand up and say, I am the Son of God. And me is not there. There's an I sitting invisibly in every chair in this room, saying, I am the Son of God. But who's that me sitting in front of this I? That me who thinks, there's a me here. Oh, there's an I, of course, in the invisible, but I've got to deal with visible things. Do you? Do you have to deal with visible things before you have cemented this I in you? This I that goes before you? This I that is the Spirit of God, the light of God, the love of God, the truth of God. What is it in an individual that prevents the letting go of I, letting go of me, and going into this invisible I? Maybe the fellow or the woman hasn't had the experience of I, the invisible I, the I that is Lord of all the universe. Do you know there are some people who still meditate and they can't forget themselves? It's like Josephine. Josephine meditates, but Josephine is always there. Josephine does this, Josephine does that, Josephine does the other thing. There's never no Josephine. So Josephine has to learn how to be I. And you have to be like Josephine, learning to be I. And I know that we have to do this. We can't afford to be caught napping so that when we are in the personality, we are hit with a ton of bricks. It's only in the personality that you have your problems. Your I does not. And I'd like you to find it, please. Try. Go down to your bootstraps and below. But find the I, and that means I've got to silence the me. Me has to get out of there. You can go all the way to China once the me is out of there. Excuse me for using you as an example, please, but I want to talk about a woman who had a hip replaced. And I'm using her as an example because by finding the I, which she does so well, and losing the me, which he does so well. She has come into a new sense of being. And this is a tussle. It isn't done by reading a book one day. It's something you live with. Sometimes you have to live with it for a long time. You live with it and live with it and live with it. There is no me. And things develop from that. You get rid of the sense of me. And you find the only thing that was ever in your way was you. Nothing else. There was always that sense of me. You say, I was going to do this and I was going to do that. You're talking about me. God didn't make a me. That's the mortal mind talking. That's the mind that is not the mind of God. And that's the imitation mind that you don't recognize as an imitation. But all day long, it tells you what me must do. And all night long it plans what me will do tomorrow. And you let this imitation mind run the life of I. Of course it doesn't. It just runs the life of me. And me is either happy or unhappy, satisfied or dissatisfied. And there isn't any me at all. When all is said and done, me is the one who dies. Because me never was there. And you're letting I, which is your eternal self, stand in the silence while me runs the life. Me gets into a fight with a neighbor. Me gets into a fight with mother. Me gets into a fight with sister, brother, everyone. I never does. Me runs my business. Do you see the only person who has had any problems in your whole life is me? And it isn't there? The mortal mind puts into your awareness a me. I have a body and I have a this and I have a that. And that's me. And me also has all the problems. And me is the one they put the name on the grave and say, he lies here or she lies here. Maybe you've got a child and he's beginning to call himself me too. It's a good time to straighten him out. Maybe as you straighten out the child, because you've got to, you might start to straighten out something about yourself. You are I. And the difference between I and me is the difference between spirit and matter. Now when he went inside a moment ago, was me out of the way. Was I wondering what would come to me if I did this and what would come to me if I did that? Is that what I did it for? You're wasting time. You're taking a figment in your imagination called me and you're trying to build it up to something. If you make me President of the United States, it'll hurt you, because me is not who you are. You are I. My neighbor says his name is I. And I know someone in Timbuktu says his name is I. And here and there, a few eyes appear. Well, they're one eye. And they all have different bodies. but invisibly they have the same body. You want to join that group because that's the fellowship of Christ. Now, if you want fellowship with Christ and don't have it, it's time to rectify it. Forget about me. You won't have fellowship with Christ as me. You won't emulate the miracles of Jesus Christ as me. You won't approach the fifth heaven as me. You live in a world of good and bad as long as the me exists. I want to get to I. We've got to come to I. I, the Spirit of God. I am the Spirit of God. He is talking to you. You are the Spirit of God. They are listening to me. One Spirit. I, wherever you are, that's your identity. It's perfect. It can't be improved. It can't die. It takes orders only from the Father. When a local board comes to say something wrong about you, but you are an I, they better watch out. I is the power. As you develop this I, you help develop the I of all those friends you have, all those children you have, all those parents that depend on the people without knowing it, to show them the way of the Father. I is the universe. I is the individual. I am. There's no one can defame I. If someone says you're a thief and your name is I, that's all you have to know. I am not. Everyone who defends the me has a tough case. He's only backed by his own character. When he's I, he stands among the immortals of the world. His strength is borrowed from the immortals. Capital I. And everywhere you see a me, replace it with capital I. You'll even feel led to live up to that I. I don't care what we walk into this room as, But I do care how we walk out. You can start off your day in a little old me with a little old body, and you're playing the odds. You're just a little old mortal walking the face of this earth. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how brave you are. You're a sitting duck for all the germs, all the iniquities, all the good and bad of this world. You may think, oh, this is a wonderful thing to do, and do it. You may find it wasn't so wonderful. Why? Because little me thought it was a grand idea. When you establish your I consciousness, you'll find that you're on your way to Christhood. Did you notice that whenever the little group of selected disciples were around Jesus Christ, there was always one definitely who was at the center, one who was masterminding all they did. That was I. And that was the spiritual I. The I which reports directly to the Father. The I which cannot do anything in the world that is not under the authority of the Father. I cannot steal, I cannot lie, I cannot do the negative things. Not I. Because I am the Father. I am the Spirit of God. Wherever I go, the Spirit of God goes. And that's why I go there. Is that the way you run your life? I? Do you see how you become someone else? Someone greater? I have not been fair in this instance. Why? Because it was handled by a human being with the name of me. Now I will run it. I will not make decisions on the basis of what is good for me. That's not how divine life is lived. And soon, as the I begins to assert itself in your consciousness, you find a different mixture of things happening inside of yourself. You have loosened certain other areas that were blocked because there was a me in front of them all the time. You couldn't give. It wasn't just physical giving. You couldn't give acceptance. You couldn't give something that the other person wanted so desperately. You couldn't give anything because me was there with a firm stand. Now that I runs it, you find you're a better person than you thought. Quite like yourself. I is always giving out God's favors. I is always demanding that everyone does the best they can. I is seeing to that. I is a wonderful person to have around. It's the living Spirit of God in you. It does things differently. It has a different standard. I and you will never lie. I and you will always think of what's best for every circumstance, for everyone concerned in your life. I and you will think of many things that me would never think of. I and you is going to open the gates of heaven for you. But you must develop this I. Consciously do it. You've got to develop your I consciousness. That's the Spirit of God consciousness in you. When your I looks out at a neighbor or any individual, whether it is in China or India or Afghanistan or Siam, your eye sees the Son of God. Me breaks it down into good and evil. When you start thinking in good and evil, I is not running your life. Start looking everywhere with I as your consciousness, knowing that I is the Son of God. You find you're somewhat elevated. Start looking at problems that you have with the I consciousness. You'll find that they don't exist in the same light. When we think of all things in terms of a mortal me, even the human life is a poor representative of the divine. It can't come up high enough. But you find when you think in terms of I, you have the divine qualities and you recognize them. You're acting above your head, it seems, until you realize that that's where you were acting, from your head. And now you're not. You begin to like I. You begin to recognize I. Pretty soon you'll be living like I. And there'll be a new self there. when we look at John, little John, he was so young when he came to Jesus. And we didn't recognize that he had come from another lifetime. Who John had been before, we don't know. But John didn't learn what he knew in this incarnation. He learned it in a previous incarnation. And he learned it so well that the Master could rest his entire mission on John. How could he transfer the revelation to John if they couldn't talk? John, I want to give you a revelation. He didn't say that. How could he give the revelation to John if John wasn't even with him? He was in heaven, and John was on the earth. John, I want to give you the revelation. How did he convey it? No one has said it. How did John take it down? No one has said it. He'd have 3 stenographers working full time. How did he do it? You see this business of I is the miracle worker. But it's not my miracle worker or his miracle worker or anyone's miracle worker. The miracle worker in our midst is I. It's your identity, but it's the miracle worker. And you've been living without the miracle worker. Now, how are you going to get to live with the miracle worker and watch the miracles as they happen? You've got to work at it. When you meditate, you don't close your eyes, picture a house on a hill and say, that's a house on the hill, let's get quiet and realize a house on the hill. You first start with your identity. I am I. And you know that so well every day of your life. And that's what's doing the meditation, not the me. What good is a meditation by me? I meditate. That should change your meditations right away. The I of me becomes aware of the universe of God. Any phase of the universe of God must be known by the I of me. And that type of meditation brings you into the divine, below the surface of the apparent world. Is that little girl over there sick? I will reveal that she is not sick. Not me, but I. Jesus didn't say I every time, but he said it a lot. It was the fact that I was the nature of his being. That's who he was. And every time anyone was healed by the Christ, it was I who healed him. I want to take someone in your life that you know is ill. right now. You're accepting the illness on the basis of their belief that they were me, and they're not me. That's why they're ill, because they think their name is me. Me has a cold, me has epilepsy, me has this, and me has that. Yes, me does. Now let's start with who they are. You're meditating for that I. And who is meditating? Me or I? I meditate for I. There's the two in my name. Now inside, almost a blackout, is this I of you and the I of the patient. All mortality is disappearing. There isn't any. You're discovering there never was any. I, in the midst of thee, am mighty. It's not someone else in the midst of thee, it's I, which you have built up by your daily use of I. You're knowing that you are the I Christ of the Father. That is your identity. You've got to live in it. This man thinks he's talking to me, but he's not. He's talking to I, but he doesn't know it. I must know it. Whenever you discuss yourself in the world, remember you are I. It need not be spoken. And when you meditate for yourself, remember you are I. And the Christ that you must touch is I. Two or more in my name are I. I, Christ. You have an opportunity to revolutionize your life. You're going to do it. If not today, tomorrow, and the next day. But you're going to do it. You're going to bring I into your life. Because without it, you don't have a life. You're just an image. I have seen what those who have accepted I as their name and Christ as the identity of that I have been able to do with their lives. We talk about miracles. When it happens to you, it really is a miracle. But the real miracle is that the individual learned the nature of their being and then never let go of it. It won't matter what happens to that individual in this world. I will always be there. I'm not a form. I'm not a mortal. I'm not a male. I'm not a female. But I am the I of everyone on the earth. And whoever is I is in the Christ circle. I think now we're all somewhat in the I. Let's keep it there, because I will transform your life. It truly will. There's no transforming anyone will do for you that I won't do. So then when you're asked to be true to Christ, if you're true to I, and you know I is Christ, and I is the center of my being, you see how you're true to Christ? When you're true to I, when you're true to I, you're true to Christ. You have many of the tools right there. For living the divine life here and now. There was a day when the divine life was something that was in a book. People didn't know that that's me. That's my nature, that's myself. But you know it. The divine self is walking inside you. Every time now an act of yours takes that into consideration, this strengthens the I of your being. It actually doesn't strengthen, but the use of the I strengthens it in you. The I is always omnipotent. But as you use it more and more, become aware of its unbelievable power. The I becomes a factor. The things that you do, people around you, the love you receive and give, the way you behave in the community, and I invisibly does all this for you. I is alive.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.